What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice Colts podcast. We're going to be breaking down the Colts versus the Texans Week 6, the preview game for this one. And today we have a special guest, James at Young Ari Gold, one of the guys from the Texans Unfiltered podcast. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing all right, all things considered. I know both of our teams, both off to a very rocky start with how the season has gone.
Yeah, I mean ours is going according to plan. Not too sure that we could say that's what's happening with the Colts this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of Colts fans kind of assumed that's how this season started out. I mean, we've had a really rough schedule to start the year, and it hasn't been very faithful to us. We kind of hope that our next part of the schedule will lead to a few more wins. We certainly hope, or otherwise some things are going to have to change. But obviously, your team 1-4, like you said, not many high expectations for the Texans this year. I've had to play some tough teams as well. Obviously got shut out by the Bills a couple weeks ago, but if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you guys have been in a lot of your games, up until the very end, despite some of the things going on amongst your team. How have you felt about your team this season?
Yeah, I think I think this team is definitely doing better than anticipated. I think a lot of it started off with week 1 and week 2 with Tyrod Taylor really kind of taking charge and ended up being, really much better than I think anybody expected, to be honest with you. I mean, he's been extremely good. And that was a surprise, but then he got hurt. And then Davis Mills comes in, doesn't look like he's going to be much, and then lights the Patriots on fire. I think he had the best quarterback passer rating of the week, but only behind Tom Brady. So wins and losses, yeah, we're probably where everybody projected us to be. But we were close in every game outside of the Bills. We look like we're at least competing. There's a lot of effort there, which is really all you can ask for at this point. Banged up, lost Laremy Tunsil yesterday for the next 4 to 5 weeks, so our left tackle's out. That's not going to be good. I know you guys don't have a great pass rush, but you guys might this week, given what you guys are going up against in the offensive line.
Yeah, so you mentioned it with the injury report. I mean, I look at it just from yesterday. I don't have today's yet, but Justin Britt, offensive lineman, did not practice. Pharaoh Brown didn't practice. You said Laremy Tunsil, obviously out for several weeks. So your best offensive lineman out there, and a couple other guys who are limited participants. How do you feel about your team's injury report so far? It's not quite as large as some other teams this week, but when you look at some of the offensive linemen you have on there, that can be rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the injury, I mean, Pharaoh Brown is somewhat of a big one. He hasn't really showed up since week 1, so he's been kind of hit or miss. But he's seems to be our number 1 tight end. And then Justin Britt, I'm assuming he'll suit up. He's just kind of that kind of guy, so he'll definitely be there at center. But I mean, outside of that, there's really not much else. Deshaun Watson on the injury report every week is just hilarious to me. Just because it's just like a taunt in your face. Like, hey, there's a top 5 quarterback that is just choosing not to play for you. So we're going to put him on the injury report every day. It's pretty annoying. But yeah, I mean, we saw a lot from Davis Mills last week. So let's just hope that, he continues to build that, given, the offensive line issues that are probably going to be happening this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts injury report not looking any better either. I mean, we already have 2 of our offensive linemen out, most likely Braden Smith out again, and it's really starting to irritate me how many weeks in a row this guy's missing, despite the fact that the Colts refuse to put him on IR for some weird reason or another. Might miss a few of our secondary guys as well, because a couple of them received concussions in the last game against the Ravens, and we have our kicker now out with a hip injury that'll probably miss a couple weeks because of the game as well. But let's kind of get into your offense here. You mentioned Davis Mills. obviously had to come in with Tyrod Taylor, who was, looking fantastic through the first 2 games of the season. Was completing 70% of his passes and, was averaging 230 yards a game at that point before he went down. And then Davis Mills comes in. First 2 weeks, nothing spectacular. Obviously, in the third game, was just absolutely destroyed by the Bills. And then, like last week, had one of the best games of any quarterback all week. So, quite a dramatic turnaround from week 3 to week 4 there. But how do you feel about Mills going forward? Because obviously there hasn't really been much consistency yet. There hasn't really been a lot of time to really adjust to that.
I was high on the Davis Mills pick originally. It was something that I really thought could pay off long term. He out of the draft, a lot of draft scouts and draft analysts were saying that he likely could have been one of the top quarterbacks taken in the 2022 draft had he had stayed another year at Stanford. Has a lot of things to work on as any rookie quarterback, right? We're talking about a guy who has a total of 11 career starts in college. Now he has a total of 14 starts in general. But he looked good Sunday against the Patriots, against a head coach that is notorious for destroying rookie quarterbacks. He's made it to the point to where one has said that he saw ghosts. The success he had against the Patriots, we're really hoping that can be replicated against the Colts, especially since this Colts defense does not look like the Colts defense a lot of people were expecting to see. It doesn't look like this defense is really gelling and playing at a level that you would expect from them, given the star talent on this defense, given Matt Eberflus being a great defensive coordinator, but a lot of injuries in the secondary and things of that nature as well. So we're hoping that he continues to progress, right? He connected quite a bit with Chris Moore, who was on the practice squad a week prior to the Patriots game. So Davis Mills was getting a lot of reps with him in the offseason. They elevated him to the active roster. He had a great game on Sunday against the Pats. So we're hoping that can be replicated. The biggest thing that's going to come down to this week, and it's every week, is can this run game be functional? Can this run game average more than 3.1 yards per carry? If not, it really doesn't matter what Davis Mills does, because if you can't run at all, you're not going to be successful in this league. And you guys have a pretty solid run defense. It's not like we're going to be able to just come in here and run all over you. Our second level blocking in the run game is pretty atrocious. Yeah, I think Davis will be fine. It's going to be interesting to see how Eberflus is able to, what he's going to be able to do, because he's used to playing nickel and sending that corner blitz every time that he plays Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun doesn't know how to anticipate blitzes and change his protection. But Davis looks like he has the ability to do so. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This defense certainly hasn't, looked like the best thing in the world that we were kind of expecting. The run defense over the last 2 weeks has gotten a whole heck of a lot better. It's faced some offensive lines that have struggled to run the ball at all. And, it seems like, with another man down for the Texans, that'll be even harder for you guys. I would totally expect the Colts to be able to hold the run game down for the Texans. But I mean, I'll go back into the passing game here. I mean, I think the one surprise for, you guys has been Brandon Cooks. I mean, Brandon Cooks, 44 targets, 31 catches already this season, almost 400 yards. I mean, averaging over 12 and a half yards a catch, and has a touchdown already. I mean, he's seemed like, he's brought an element to this team right now. And, with the way Davis Mills is playing, you'd hope that continues. And, for a team like the Colts, I mean, the Texans always seem to give us troubles in the secondary. It just always seems to happen. Like, the Colts should always be blowing this team out every single time when you look at it from a roster perspective. But every time, the Texans just seem to always torch us in the secondary somehow, some way. So, I mean, how do you feel about the wide receiver group you have? Because, you got Chris Conley and Brandon Cooks obviously having a great year so far. How do you feel about him?
Well, I think with Brandon Cooks, Brandon Cooks is one of those guys that just he performs no matter what, right? I mean, if you look at the amount of teams he's on, like, did you know that Brandon Cooks is only 27?
The only 27? Jeez, that's crazy. I mean, he's been in the league now for quite a few years, but you just
27.
yeah, it's crazy
No,
to think about that.
nobody would know that unless you just went and looked at it. You would think he's like 30, 31. He's been on so many different teams, traded so many different times for first round picks and things of that nature, but the guy's always produced. So it's a great security blanket for Davis Mills. It's nice to have a veteran wide receiver who probably one of the better route runners in the league, also one of the quicker guys in the league. So when you kind of combine those two things, it's nice to have for a third round rookie quarterback in Davis Mills. Chris Conley's a guy that's coming on late. He's starting to see his target shares go up as well. I saw it last week. He's a guy that really didn't have a ton of time or a ton of opportunity to really make plays in Kansas City, given he was so buried on the depth chart with Sammy Watkins and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Then last year he was in Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew, not really the quarterback that you want to have throwing you the ball. So Conley's nice to have, and then Chris Moore, like I said, that's the guy that I think people really need to kind of get familiar with. He's an undrafted rookie who played extremely well on Sunday and looks to build on that. Had a great camp. Then you bring in the tight ends. You got Pharaoh Brown and Jordan Akins, both very, very versatile tight ends, good receiving threats. And then David Johnson's been actually used a lot at receiver this year. He's actually been very, very, very reliable. And Davis went to him quite a bit on Sunday. So I would expect to see a lot of Darius Leonard on David Johnson when he's coming out of the backfield or lined up in the slot. Yeah, I mean, I feel really good about the offense. It's the play calling, it's the time management, it's the game management, it's things of that nature that out of anybody's realm outside of the coaches. So if they could put together a better game plan, we should have came away with a win against the Patriots. We should have came away with a win against Carolina. So if they can just kind of start to put things together and get consistent, it'll be very interesting to see what this team's able to do. Because look, the Titans are trash. They're not very good. Yeah, they have a better record, but the Titans are like it's like they're the best in the AFC South, but are they really that good? Like I can't say they're that much better than the Colts, and I can't say they're that much better than the Texans, to be honest with you. So it's like the AFC South is really up for grabs, and it's going to be interesting to see. I still wouldn't be surprised if the Colts end up taking this one out, just because Carson Wentz is playing well. And yeah,
he is playing well, and this Colts schedule is going to get a lot easier over the next 6 weeks versus the Titans. The Titans are going to have a similar gauntlet to what we had. So we'll see how the records change up over the next 6 weeks. Is there somebody on this offense that you think could have an impact on this game that you feel that others aren't necessarily looking at? I see a guy on this roster here by the name of Chris Moore, who's only played in 2 games, but has 5 catches for 109 yards, and he's got your second most yardage per game right now. When you look at yardage wise, I mean, I see that as a potential option.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Moore, I feel like I've been talking about him just this entire time on the pod. I mean, this is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of different people. And he's built a lot of rapport with Davis Mills while Tyrod was taking first team reps this year in training camp and practices, because he has been on the practice squad. So he's been playing with the backup quarterback the entire time. So him and Davis have a good rapport and a good relationship. They seem to be on the same page when they're on the field. And Sunday was his first game being active. So that was in pretty much one game. So if you think about it, maybe he could continue. They do have pretty good corners in New England. And he looked really, Davis was putting the ball exactly where he needed to be. Had perfect ball placement on the sideline touchdown. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially without Rock Ya-Sin playing, and the rest of the people in your secondary. You guys are banged up. It's going to be fun to watch because you got Brandon on one side, Conley on the other, and then potentially Chris Moore. It's going to be interesting to see how Eberflus is able to match up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Rock Ya-Sin was a full participant at practice today. Not sure again whether or not he is going to play or not, because I thought he was going to play last week, and they ended up pulling him for the precautionary reasons. And Rhodes has a concussion right now, so I don't know if and when he's actually going to play. So I pull the string potentially on him. But then again, Rhodes has not been good this year by any stretch. And Rock Ya-Sin has actually been our best corner, which is quite crazy if you asked every Colts fan who is going to be our best corner. I think that not a single Colts fan was ever going to tell you it was going to be Rocky Sin, but he's been the best one. Okay, so let's move to your defense here and see how you like going up against the Colts offense right now. So Carson Wentz, believe it or not, has actually been the best Colts player on this roster. And again, if you asked every Colts fan who is going to be the best player on the offensive roster, guarantee Carson Wentz's name was not going to come up. Most Colts fans said, oh, well, we think he's probably going to be, average to maybe good. I think he's been above average. I actually think he's been really good in a lot of different instances. Has been completing over 65% of his passes. Honestly, that number would be higher if he wasn't playing in that Titans game when he was, on 2 bum ankles. 1,300 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. So he's taking care of the ball a lot this year. How do you feel about Carson Wentz and what he's been able to do in Indy so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked in the offseason, we determined it all came down to what Carson Wentz was able to do and how he played. Monday night he looked extremely good against the Ravens. He was getting rid of the ball quick. Looks like his mechanics are back. He's sticking to the fundamentals. He looks comfortable if he needs to escape the pocket. It looks like you guys are getting close to the 2018 Carson Wentz, which is that's a big plus for Colts fans. But at the end of the day, you guys also got to determine if you guys can't win this division and make the playoffs. Do you play Carson Wentz?
Yeah.
Do you give up that first round pick for a guy that,
right.
is that going to be him? But he looked good again on Sunday against Baltimore. He's going to throw a pick on Sunday. That's Lovie Smith. That's what he does. That he's just the takeaway king. I mean, like I don't know the stats. I'm not really too big into stats, but I'm pretty sure the Texans are in top 5 in takeaways this season. So, it's definitely been a pretty drastic change from Lovey's Tampa 2 and cover 2 scheme with the players and the personnel that is on the roster now. So I feel pretty good about it. I don't expect Carson Wentz to carve us up. There's definitely going to be opportunities for him to take some chances, especially in the middle of the field. It seems like tight end. So if I was a fantasy guy, I'd probably play Mo Alley Cox as my tight end 1 this week because he's probably going to get quite a bit of balls. And T.Y.'s back, right? T.Y.'s back. This is the first time we've seen Carson and T.Y.
Maybe we'll
back.
See. We know he's back. Did return to practice yesterday. They said they are not going to decide whether or not he plays until probably closer to game time. The only reason that I think they're even considering doing it is because, again, we know T.Y. Hilton's track record against the Texans. It's the one team that he absolutely toasts every time he plays. So
you just had to add it. You just had to add that in there.
Memories, huh?
Just had to add it in there. So we all know T.Y. is going to get 190 yards this week. We all know it. Okay. We all know he's going to have 190, 2 TDs.
Shut everybody else down, and then you still have a chance to win.
T.Y. Hilton has a Hall of Fame career if you just take away if you only play have the stats of him playing the Texans. Let's just be real here. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, T.Y. being back is a different dynamic to this offense. It's something you guys have missed for sure. You guys have asked Michael Pittman to do quite a bit. Outside of Pittman and Mo Alley Cox, there's really not a lot of weapons on the outside. I mean, some guys that are good at what they do, but really not like a true vertical threat in the sense of T.Y. Hilton. And, it'll be interesting because last year he played quite a bit in the slot. You have to wonder if this year is going to be kind of very similar. Is he going to be playing in the slot quite a bit, or is he going to be lined up outside? I would assume to see him play up, probably lined up outside this game just because of our corners and who he's playing. But, I mean, I'm not really scared of your offense. I think, our defense did extremely well against Cleveland. And I think they're a much better offense than you guys. Much better ground game. I do love Jonathan Taylor. That's really probably my only concern on offense. I do think Carson Wentz will probably get 280, 2 TDs and an interception. But Jonathan Taylor's probably. I was surprised to hear you say Carson Wentz is your guys' best offensive player this year.
Has been so far.
And then I watched Jonathan Taylor on Monday night.
Monday night, Jonathan Taylor reminded you of what he can do. He reminded you finally of what he was able to do. But for the most part, up until that game, he has been relatively silent. I mean, he only had 100 rushing yards in Miami. That was the first time all season that he ever broke over 70 yards. And, they were playing against a god-awful defense in Miami, so we didn't really take away much from it. he looked much better against the Ravens. So now we're starting to see the rise of a Jonathan Taylor start to get utilized, not just in the run game, but being utilized outside. And, if T.Y. Hilton does play, and even if he doesn't, yeah, I think that the one thing you'll want to actually look at is the sidelines, because there is only Carson Wentz has been better than any quarterback this season. There's one thing he's been better at than every quarterback this season, and that's been throwing to wide receivers outside the lines. When it comes to throwing near the sideline, he has been the most accurate quarterback of anyone in the league. So, when you look at guys like Zach Pascal, who, by the way, has 3 touchdowns this year, he does have the most touchdowns on the team right now. He's more of the guy in the red zone that they definitely go to look for. And obviously, Michael Pittman Jr., we're starting to see the resurgence of him, has had 40 targets over the last 4 games and has not dropped a pass. Jonathan Taylor's now getting utilized. Mo Alley Cox has now they finally have a game plan to utilize Mo Alley Cox more. And of course, Nyheim Hines, who, at any point you get him on the outside, you can definitely utilize his speed and agility. So, I get what you're saying about, this defense being a lot stronger, but, I think that you don't give the offense enough credit here for the Colts on the amount of weapons that they can use in this situation.
Yeah, I just when I compare your guys' offense to like the Browns, right? Very potent offense, 2 running backs that could just take over a game. Jarvis Landry, their tight end David Njoku. They also have Austin Hooper. They have a top 5 offensive line, and they have a better quarterback. We were able to. I mean, we were in that game. We were leading that game with Tyrod Taylor at the helm. Going into the half. So I think that we can definitely hold the Colts offense in a way that I think people probably wouldn't expect. Now, Nyheim Hines is one of those guys that if I'm a Texans fan, I'm scared because we don't really have a linebacker that can cover Nyheim Hines out of the backfield, and he doesn't just line up in the backfield; he'll line up in the slot. He'll really kind of line up anywhere, and he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands, and you saw that Monday night as well. Like the guy can just get open. And so Hines, to me, is really probably the X factor for you guys on offense against this defense because we really don't have cover guys. Our linebackers aren't fast enough. They're not very good at playing zone, and our pass rush is not very good either. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I would assume Nyheim Hines. But, again, you guys have a hurt offensive line as well, so it'll be interesting to see what our defense does against that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line has definitely been weird. The interior, some of the interior has been better than the tackles for sure. I mean, Chris Reed, who's taken over for Quentin Nelson. I mean, Quentin Nelson's great, but Chris Reed has been doing an excellent job of filling in for him. Ryan Kelly's been pretty decent this year. Matt Pryor, finally the Colts decided to start Matt Pryor over Julian Davenport. It was the best thing in the world because Matt Pryor actually looked good against the Ravens last week. Mark Lewinsky's the only one that concerns me on the right guard spot. And Eric Fisher's not been great either. Eric Fisher's been beat off the edge a couple times, and, that kind of concerns me because I don't know why it's taken him so long to finally get going. But, I'm interested to see what you guys do to up the defensive line pressure because a couple different stunts might confuse this Colts offensive line because they've not had a lot of time to work together. Who's somebody on your defense that you think can be the X factor to winning this game?
Yeah, so it's going to be a second year rookie, Jonathan Grenard out of Florida. Last year didn't get a lot of playing time. This year we're really starting to see him come up. Had a great game against the Patriots. He's started over the last 2 weeks and looked extremely good. I think he's had a sack in each game, also a forced fumble. This is a guy that really has the juice that we've been needing on the defensive line. And so I would keep an eye on Jonathan Grenard because he's extremely quick. And he can be very physical. He really knows how to use his hands in the pass rush. And I would watch Jonathan Grenard if I was you guys.
Okay. One more question, and then we'll get into score prediction here. We'll talk about the special teams real quick. So is your special teams solid, would you say, or is there some questionable spots with the special teams unit for the Texans?
Our kicker just came back from injury last week, so he missed 2 extra points and a field goal. He hasn't been very good. He kicked a kickoff out of bounds. So definitely not super excited about the special teams. Return game, kind of weak. But, coverage wise on special teams, we're pretty good. We're not going to give up a ton of yards. We'll keep, whatever team we play at bay. But, we really haven't seen much out of Andre Roberts on our return game. Pro Bowl returner for, 6 years, brought in here to really bring some juice. And I think he's had 4 muffed punts. Has not been good. So special teams, I'd say, is actually pretty bad.
All right. Yeah. I mean, Colts know a lot of that when it comes to, special teams making or breaking a game. We've had a lot of those over the last few years. So the reason I ask, obviously, Hines returning punts. Hines is dangerous to touch it anytime he touches it. Doolin and I think it's Campbell now that are in the back for the kick return. And I don't know how our kicker is going to be this week. Obviously, Blankenship being out for an extended period of time with that hip, anything can happen there. All right, well, let's go ahead and hop into a prediction here. Why don't you tell me what you think the score is going to be for Sunday?
Yeah, realistically, I think the Texans beat the Colts. I do think that we'll actually have a better game on offense. I think the game plan will be better. I think, in-game management is going to be a big talking point for a lot of people when it comes to the Texans this week. But I expect, 24-21 Texans.
Okay. 24-21 Texans. Okay. I'm going to probably go 27-21 Indianapolis. I think both teams will score above 20. Just somehow, some way that seems to happen quite often with the way these two teams battle. I think both offenses are starting to figure it out a little bit. So I think we'll see some good points scored. But I think the Colts just will have a slight advantage in how to maintain the clock. So I think that's how that'll work. Well, hey, man, I want to say thank you so much for hopping in with me. I know it was short notice when I asked you. I had a crazy day, so I was going to ask you originally, but I had a crazy last 24 hours. But I appreciate you coming on and talking Texans football with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on again. It's always fun coming on here. Make sure you guys go follow me on Twitter at young_Ari Gold. And Derek, thank you for having me. And hopefully both teams come out healthy on Sunday and we have an entertaining game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be going to the game, so I certainly hope that it will be entertaining, and I certainly hope, like you said, everybody stays healthy. Colts have been doing a little better at that recently. Hopefully it stays that way. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this one. Thank you again so much, and make sure to let me know what you think of this game in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for the support, and as always, go Colts.